Balochistan, Pakistan's largest province by area and its most politically combustible region, is once again in the news. The Baloch Liberation Army has recently released videos purportedly showing coordinated IED attacks on Pakistani military forces. Geographically, Balochistan sits at crucial crossroads. It is rich in natural resources, borders Iran and Afghanistan, and opens onto the Arabian Sea. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, runs through this volatile province all the way to Gwadar port. Namaskar and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Rajiv Kumar Singh. In this episode of History Behind Headlines, we take a deep dive into the story of Balochistan, its complexity, its troubled relationship with Pakistan, and its significance for India in the regional context. Let us take a look at Balochistan, a land of riches, rebellion, and resentment. After declaring independence in August 1947, the Khanat of Kalat was compelled to accede to Pakistan on May 27, 1948. The accession was contentious, shaped by British pressure, the Khan's continued refusal, and ultimately a Pakistani military invasion that forced the signing of the instrument of accession. In the nearly 8 decades since, Balochistan's experience within Pakistan has been marked by repeated and often brutal centralizing policies, the plunder of resources with minimal local benefit, heavy militarization that has fueled a fractured insurgency, recurring cycles of violence, and an enduring human rights crisis. In 2024-25, the conflict escalated. The March 2025 Jaffa Express train hijacking, a large summer offensive labeled Operation Bomb by Baloch separatists in July 2025, and fresh video claims by the Baloch Liberation Army (BLA) of coordinated IED attacks in September 2025 mark a significant intensification. Independent casualty and disappearance figures remain contested, but local human rights monitors report hundreds of enforced disappearances and dozens to hundreds of killings in 2025 alone. Balochistan covers nearly 44% of Pakistan's total landmass, making it by far the country's largest province. Yet, despite its sheer size, it remains sparsely populated. The people of Balochistan are ethnically diverse. The Baloch and the Brahui, speaking their respective languages, Balochi and Brahui, form the majority. In the north and northeast, significant Pashtun populations live, while smaller communities of Hindus, Sindhis, and others add to the province's social mosaic. Ironically, Balochistan is resource-rich but economically poor. Beneath its rugged terrain lie deposits of copper, gold, coal, and natural gas. Its coastline stretches for nearly 770 kilometers along the Arabian Sea, giving Balochistan a maritime significance unmatched by any other Pakistani province. At the heart of this coastline lies the Gwadar port, considered one of the most strategic deep water ports in the world. Yet, much of the province struggles with underdevelopment, limited infrastructure, and inadequate public services. Politically, tribal structures and sardars still play an influential role in Balochistan. Local clan loyalties and kinship networks often determine political alignments more than national parties do. While some groups demand a fairer share of resource revenues and greater provincial autonomy, others have pressed for nothing short of complete independence from Pakistan. This spectrum of aspirations, coupled with periodic insurgencies, has made Balochistan one of Pakistan's most restive regions.
Before the partition of British India in 1947, Balochistan was not a single administrative unit, but a mosaic of territories under different arrangements with the British. Some areas like British Balochistan, around Quetta and adjoining districts, were directly administered by the British colonial government. The rest consisted of princely states under British suzerainty, the most important of which was the Khanat of Kalat.
Kalat had a long history of semi-independent rule under the Baloch Khans, though it remained tied to British through treaties. When the British prepared to leave, Kalat took a unique position. On 15th of August 1947, the Khan of Kalat declared Balochistan's independence, arguing that Kalat was not automatically part of either dominion. For a brief period, Kalat even had treaties with Pakistan on matters like defense and foreign affairs, but retained internal autonomy. This independence, however, was short-lived. By early 1948, Pakistan's leadership, particularly Muhammad Ali Jinnah, pressed hard for accession. Under intense political and military pressure, the Khan of Kalat signed an instrument of accession in March 1948. Whether that accession was fully consensual has been disputed ever since. Baloch narratives often describe coercion and detention of Kalat's leaders. They also stress that the state was effectively forcibly annexed by Pakistan. That unresolved legacy is foundational to modern Baloch grievances.
Quaid-e-Azam itself came to our king, Khan of Kalat, that time Khan of Kalat, and requested him to be part of Pakistan. But Khan totally denied, and Khan said, I have to go to approach my upper house and lower house, they have to decide. And they totally denied. And even, I think, might you know or don't know, our forefather, our Khan of Kalat and other people, upper house, lower house, they approached to India that we want to be part of you, because they know that time. Like Pashtun knows, and Baloch also know that we are going to be in trouble with these religious extremists.
The annexation ignited the first Baloch insurgency in 1948, setting the stage for decades of unrest that continue to reverberate to this day. From 1948 onward, there have been multiple insurgencies. Late 1940s, 1950s, 60s, the major 1973 to 77 rebellion, renewed insurgencies from the 2000s. High-profile events that hardened Baloch distrust include the 1970s military campaigns and the killing of Nawab Akbar Bukti in 2006, an episode that many Baloch consider as watershed that radicalized sections of the population and intensified the insurgency. The Baloch people have always felt excluded from decision-making and deprived of their fair share at the hands of Pakistan. Before we proceed further, let us consider some data points. Considering land share versus population share versus budget allocation, Balochistan covers 44% of Pakistan's total land area, but has only around 6% of its population. That is around 14.89 million out of 241 million according to 2023 figures. Yet, in federal budget allocations, Balochistan often receives less than 6% of the total, despite its disproportionate land and security needs. Talking about gas production versus gas access, the Sui gas fields located in Balochistan's Dera Bukti district produces around 40% of Pakistan's total natural gas output, but only 25% of Balochistan's households have access to piped gas, compared to over 60% in Pakistani Punjab. As far as education is concerned, literacy rate in Balochistan is around 46%, compared to Pakistan's national average of 62%. female literacy in Balochistan is especially stark, only about 24%, while in Punjab it is over 55%. As far as health facilities go, Balochistan has only 0.6 doctors per 1,000 people compared to the national average of 1.1. Maternal mortality in Balochistan is among the highest in South Asia, estimated at 785 per 1 lakh live births, nearly double the national figure. Talking about infrastructure, only 7% of Balochistan's population has access to clean drinking water, compared to 35% nationwide. Road density is also poor, 36 km per 1000 square kilometer, compared to Punjab's 200 plus kilometer per 1000 square kilometer. Unemployment and poverty levels are high in Balochistan. Poverty incidence in Balochistan is over 40%, while the national average is 24%. Youth unemployment is estimated to be around 35% compared to 20% in Punjab. The Human Development Index too is poor in Balochistan. According to UNDP, Balochistan's HDI according to 2019 figures was 0.421, far below the national average of 0.560. Some districts like Dera Bukti and Kolu have HDI levels comparable to sub-Saharan Africa. These data points together show the imbalance between Balochistan's resources and strategic importance and the neglect in development, social services and political inclusion, which fuels alienation. The reason for that is political marginalization. Provincial authority is limited by Islamabad's prevailing control of security and large projects. Many Baloch feel underrepresented in national politics and bureaucracy. Economic grievance and resource extraction. Balochistan is rich in minerals, gas and fisheries. Locals argue that revenue and contracts flow to federal elites, external companies or to non-local labor, while health, education and infrastructure in rural districts remain underfunded. Land displacement and livelihoods, port expansion, mining and security zones, notably around Gwada, have caused dispossession and loss of access to traditional fishing, grazing areas. Security and human rights abuses, enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, fake encounters and restrictions on protest and press are repeatedly documented by local monitors. Cultural and identity concerns, language, customary law and tribal autonomy are sources of identity that many Baloch feel are under threat. These grievances feed a spectrum of political responses, from demands for better federalism to armed separatism, and explain why insurgency persists despite periods of heavy security crackdowns.
There is no single day Pakistan do not come in Baloch houses to kidnap their people, murder their children, kidnap their youth, and they are doing the same thing like they did in Bangladesh in 1971.
China's CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is said to be transformative in ambition. New roads, energy projects, the deep sea port at Gwada, and special economic zones. For Pakistan and China, it promises commerce and geostrategic access. For many local communities, it has been an accelerant of grievance because jobs and high-value contracts often go to non-locals or Chinese firms rather than Baloch contractors or skilled workers. Land acquisition, environmental damage, and restrictions near port, industrial zones have hurt fishermen and farmers. Heavy security presence around CPEC projects increases local sense of occupation. These factors have made CPEC sites flashpoints for attacks by rebels and for protests by communities who demand a larger share of benefits, environmental safeguards, and participatory decision making. Analysts note that mismanaging local inclusion risks turning economic projects into long-term security liabilities.
China is afraid that if somehow this Malacca state is blocked, so their supply of energy from this Malacca state will be affected. So they want a direct access to the energy sources of West Asia through another route. So here Gwadar can be an effective source. From here energy can be supplied through Gwadar to China, etc. So that is an important part of the Belt Road Initiative of China. But the tragedy is that local people have not been given anything. The best thing would have been for China and Pakistan that Baloch people would have been made the important stakeholder. So at least some Baloch would have supported. Now the Baloch nationalists are using this issue that not only our natural resources, that Pakistan and China, they are using our territory also for their own economic interest, for their own benefit.
Multiple armed groups like BLA, that is Balochistan Liberation Army, BLF, that is Balochistan Liberation Front, BRA, that is Baloch Republican Army, and their splinter organizations operate in the region. Tactics include IEDs, targeted attacks on security personnel, occasional urban strikes, and spectacular actions such as train sabotage. Jaffa Express hijacking took place on 11th of March 2025. The BLA claimed responsibility. Reporting differs on the toll. Pakistan's military said hundreds of hostages were rescued and most attackers neutralized. Reuters reported that during the rescue operation, 21 hostages and 4 troops were killed and all 33 attackers were neutralized. Other accounts and later compilations give different casualty totals. The incident was a major escalation in operational audacity and prompted national focus on Baloch insurgency. Operation Bomb, July 2025. The BLF announced a coordinated offensive it called Operation Bomb that ran from 9th to 11th of July 2025, claiming scores of attacks across districts. Local media and separatist statements described dozens of targets hit in a short period, signaling improved coordination among some insurgent cells. Pakistani reporting emphasized security responses and arrests. September 2025, BLA video IED attacks in Tump and Zamuran. In mid-September 2025, the BLA media wing, Hakar, released footage purporting to show multiple IED strikes targeting Pakistani military columns in Tump and Zamuran and claimed 9 soldiers killed and 3 wounded. Pakistani authorities typically have contested separatist casualty claims. Independent verification is difficult in remote zones. This release is, however, consistent with a pattern of separatist multimedia claims used to demonstrate reach and to influence local narratives. Independent verification is complicated by restricted access, competing official and separatist figures, and the chaotic nature of conflict. Local human rights monitors and Baloch organizations have nonetheless published periodic tallies that are the best available contemporaneous record. March 2025, local monitors, HRCB, that is Human Rights Council of Balochistan, PANG, the Human Rights Desk of the Baloch National Movement, recorded very large numbers during and after the Jaffa Express incident. HRCB and PANG reported figures in the order of 150 plus enforced disappearances and around 80 killings linked to operations and crackdowns that month. May to June 2025, PANG and other groups continue to document disappearances and killings. Monthly reports from May and June indicate dozens to low hundreds of disappearances in those months alone. These local tallies emphasize enforced disappearances, custodial deaths, and bodies found in ways families contest. High-profile deaths and transnational targeting have amplified fear among activists and dissidents. There have been numerous targeted killings of Baloch leaders, activists, and intellectuals both inside Pakistan and abroad. Families and local NGOs frequently accuse Pakistan's security services or pro-state militias of involvement. The Pakistani state normally denies extrajudicial policy and cites counter-terror operations. Internationally, questions about the safety of exiled Baloch leaders and journalists persist. Talking about India's posture, Indian leaders, notably Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in past Independence Day addresses have referenced Balochistan when raising human rights concerns.
पिछले कुछ दिनों से बलूचिस्तान के लोगों ने, गिलगिट के लोगों ने, पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर के लोगों ने, वहां के नागरिकों ने जिस प्रकार से मुझे बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद दिया है, जिस प्रकार से मेरा आभार व्यक्त किया है, ऐसे दूर सुदूर बैठे हुए लोग हिंदुस्तान के एक प्रधानमंत्री को अभिनंदन करते हैं, उसका आदर करते हैं, तो मेरे 125 करोड़ देशवासियों का आनंद है।
Indian public diplomacy tends to highlight abuses and the plight of families of the disappeared in Balochistan.
India has been in the forefront in raising this violation of the human rights in Balochistan. And this is a major issue, and even in fact Balochistan also looks forward to India, that at least India will raise this issue because of many other countries, China, America, etc., because of their strategic interest, because of their military interest, because of their close partnership with Pakistan. They are not raising the violation of the human rights in Balochistan.
New Delhi emphasizes on human rights rather than support for any separatist group active in Balochistan. Baloch activists have welcomed international attention but are wary of being framed as proxies in India-Pakistan rivalry.
Democratic countries like India and the other countries, they must come forward and help us officially in any forum. I mean, the UN and the European Parliament, anywhere. We need support. But saying proxy, like I told you, this is the habit of the Pakistan. Whenever they have any chance to stop the atrocities and whatever, they will blame their Indian agent. And like I told you, that Mother and Millet can be Indian agent, then we are the son of the soil. This is our land before birth of the Pakistan.
Talking about China, Beijing treats Baloch insurgency as a direct threat to CPEC. Chinese investment decisions increasingly factor security risk. China has pushed for stronger Pakistani security measures to protect projects. But local resentment and attacks against Chinese workers' infrastructure have been a recurrent worry for Beijing. As far as regional effects go, it is important to remember that a significant portion of the Baloch homeland lies within Iran's southeastern province of Sistan and Balochistan, which shares a long border with Pakistan's Balochistan. This region, though ethnically and culturally tied to the Baloch across the border, has historically remained under Tehran's firm control. Iranian Baloch areas face similar issues of underdevelopment, limited political representation and occasional unrest, with the state responding through tight security measures and centralized authority. In mid-January 2024, Iran conducted missile and drone strikes into Balochistan, targeting a Baloch group, Jaish al-Adl, active in Iran. Pakistan retaliated with strikes on hideouts of separatist Baloch groups inside Iran's Sistan and Balochistan province. Iran, as well as Afghanistan, watch Baloch unrest anxiously because of cross-border ethnic links and potential spillover. International human rights NGOs continue to document abuses and call for independent probes. The situation remains hard to resolve due to mutual distrust, decades of broken promises, reprisals and opaque security behavior make negotiation fragile. Fragmented Baloch politics, differing tribal interests and competing separatist groups complicated unified talks. Security economic dilemma. Heavy securitization undermines the very economic development projects intended to bring stability. Geostrategic stakes. Pakistan's insistence on securing CPEC and territorial integrity collides with local demands for control and fair distribution. Weak oversight and accountability. Courts, local investigations and impartial international monitoring are limited in reach inside the province. A meaningful progress calls for a sustainable solution would need multiple elements pursued in parallel. Immediate confidence building, transparent investigations into disappearances, credible protections for protest and journalism, and releases where legally appropriate. Inclusive political dialogue, federal government, elected provincial leaders, tribal elders, civil society and moderate political forces should participate in talks about resource control and revenue sharing. Security reform and oversight. Limit heavy-handed military actions in civilian areas. Establish independent investigations into alleged abuses. Local economic inclusion. CPEC and extractive projects must include binding local hiring quotas, fair compensation for land and livelihood losses, environmental safeguards and public accounting of revenues. International confidence measures. Invite observers or neutral third parties to monitor sensitive cases, not to dictate policy, but to build trust through transparency. Balochistan's future matters far beyond its borders. It affects Pakistan's internal cohesion, China's strategic corridors, regional stability with Iran and Afghanistan, and India-Pakistan diplomatic dynamics. Renewed militant claims shows a security situation deteriorating fast. At the same time, the human rights data from local monitors indicate that state tactics of coercion and enforced disappearances are fueling cycles of grievance and recruitment.
A long-term fix for the Balochistan problem will be political, not purely military, requiring credible devolution of power and resources, transparent accountability for abuses and genuine efforts to ensure locals gain from large investments rather than being displaced by them. Without these, conflict will continue to feed itself and Balochistan will remain the region that can unsettle the wider South Asian strategic landscape. That is all we have in this program. Thanks for watching.